Hi, I'm Colin Seale, the founder and CEO of thinkLaw, where we help educators teach critical thinking to all students. And for today's hashtag Thinking Tuesday video, we're talking about the number one mistake teachers make when it comes to critical thinking. Now, when I talk about critical thinking, I don't just mean critical thinking skills like analysis and interpretation and metacognition. I'm talking about the mindsets and the habits that go with those skills. So it becomes much more likely that our students are applying this critical thinking throughout their life, career, and academics. So this mistake is a very common one, and it starts from the way we're trained as teachers. We all learn about Bloom's taxonomy. We understand that at the very beginning of Bloom's taxonomy, we have knowledge, and we almost always see that as our entry point. This is where we share facts and figures and formulas and dates, and we do the basic problems. And then, maybe towards the end of that lesson, we might start doing some application. And then some acknowledgement. We understand that that's really when kids start to show that learning. But a lot of times we stop there. And then maybe every once in a while, once every blue moon, we'll be able to throw in a project where there's going to be some evaluation, some prediction, some synthesis. But there's this feeling that in a normal day's class, within the time constraints we have, we can't always get there. The problem is, we are looking at this map the entire wrong way. And if I look at one consistent theme that I see from educators I connect with across the country, and from principals and chief academic officers that tell me about their frustrations with closing the gap when it comes to higher order instruction for our kids, it's this myth that you actually have to start with basic knowledge in order to be a critical thinker. I'll give you an example. In my high school English class, I remember reading A Tale of Two Cities. And I never forget the opening line. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And it's not just because that's a famous quote that's on Jeopardy sometimes, but it's because when we started reading A Tale of Two Cities, before we ever read that full first page, we had to make predictions about what we thought this book might be about between looking at the title and that first line, and really coming up with an idea of how this plot might develop. So now the whole time we're reading it with this framework of making a hypothesis as we're going along. Like a prediction is something that's high up on that framework. When we think about other issues, if you talk about equitable distribution of resources, and you're looking at this as part of a multiplication and division unit in math, and you decided to use school funding as a way to look at this, and you want to pose a huge question at the beginning of this around equity. Is it ever okay to give people more than others if we're trying to get them to a similar result? And maybe some ideas of pure fairness might lean some kids towards equality, some might lead them towards equity, but we're having them now talking about evaluating an outcome before we get into it. So we're starting with this really rigorous, engaging thematic question. And we could always go back to those basics. In fact, by starting up here, we're often building the will, the motivation to get our kids the basic skills that they need. So don't make the number one mistake that educators are making. Don't go in order of the way Bloom's taxonomy spells it out. Figure out a way to start with the top. Start with the big, deep questions that are going to engage our students, that don't require a bunch of prerequisite learning, and that are, by definition, approachable for our students. That'll be a great way to enhance your critical thinking instruction. For more information about thinkLaw and how we're revolutionizing critical thinking instruction across the country, please check us out on www.thinklaw.us and follow us on Twitter @thinklawus. Thanks.